Good morning. Welcome to session 1 of the European Green Infrastructure Day 2022. In this session, we will focus on the role of green roofs and walls in delivering better climate, buildings energy transition, and urban biodiversity. My name is Katarzyna Wardal. I'm EU Public Affairs Manager at Knauf Insulation, member of the World Green Infrastructure Network. I will be your moderator during the first 2 sessions of the day. Before we start, let me quote an inspiring text coming directly from the European Commission. In 10 years, our buildings of Europe will be the microcosms of a more resilient, greener, and digitized society operating in a circular system by reducing energy needs, waste generation, and emissions. Their roofs and walls will increase the green surface of our cities and improve the urban climate and biodiversity. This was an extract of a conclusion of the EU Renovation Wave strategy published by the European Commission in October 2020. Since then, a number of EU proposals and files were published, including the adoption of the EU Adaptation strategy and the proposal of a recast of the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive. Some other files are still waiting Commission proposals, such as the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive. In this session of the day, we will explore how EU legislation and policy can lead to making this precise vision for buildings come true. And now I would like to introduce you to our distinguished speakers. Mrs. Elena Višnar Malinovská, Head of Unit Adaptation and Resilience to Climate Change at DG Climate Action at the European Commission. Welcome.
Thank you.
And thank you. And our guests representing green infrastructure industry are also with us. This is Mr. Tim Bauder, Managing Director at Bauder. Mr. David Richard, Deputy Director General at Akuo Energy. And Mr. Adrian Michel, Head of Product Management, System Engineering and Roofing at Sika. Mrs. Malinovská, I would like to start with you. How does the Commission perceive the integration of vegetation in our buildings and urban areas? Is this sufficiently included, and how in the EU adaptation strategy? The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and many thanks for inviting me to this event. My reply could be a very short one, positively. But let me elaborate a little bit more. Last weekend, I spent with my son in Colmar in France. And he went there to a nice hockey tournament, and it struck me so positively how much the ice rink building was actually enveloped in greenery. And we know that the threat of climate change calls for a design for unexpected futures. And hopefully this building that I really fell in love with is ready to pick up this challenge and last. Much has been already said in the past about the advantages of improving energy efficiency, energy performance of buildings, reducing greenhouse gas emissions or air pollutant emissions caused by the energy used during the building life. But the Commission's recent legislative proposals in the construction sector go beyond increasing ambition on these aspects. They are to building not a crazy, awesome, or exceptional structure, but rather a regular design. And in my intervention, let us put some light as to how buildings can remove carbon or to adapt to climate change. Well, first of all, to achieve climate neutrality at the latest by 2050, and negative emissions thereafter, as set out in the European climate law, we need to reduce drastically greenhouse gas emissions, and of course, also increase the level of carbon removals and establish sustainable carbon cycles. As highlighted by the President of the Commission, Ms. Ursula von der Leyen, and as it is put in the renovation wave that you mentioned, the construction sector could be turned into a carbon sink sector, for example, through the promotion of green infrastructure and the use of organic building materials that can store carbon, such as sustainably sourced wood. Buildings to last mean a building with the right materials in the right way. And so in addition to decarbonizing its energy system, the European Union needs to rethink its sourcing of carbon as feedstock for industrial processes and to establish a new industrial value chain on carbon to replace energy-intensive materials such as cement and steel with bio-based materials which store carbon for a longer period of time. And the Commission is working to decarbonize and to promote carbon removal for the construction sector through better acknowledging the climate benefits of wood-based construction products and other carbon storing products, promoting the so-called principle of cascading use for wood with a priority to long-lived uses such as construction products, but also dynamic life cycle assessment of construction products in order to give value to the long-term storage of carbon. And these principles have been applied across relevant legislative revisions, also in the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, thematic strategies such as the one on forests, a future roadmap on decarbonizing buildings by 2050, and European standardization. So in the next few years, we need to see more, and improving the monitoring, reporting and verification of carbon removals is the first fundamental step to enable these robust markets to be created and to flourish, and of course regulatory uses of carbon certificates. So by the end of this year, the Commission will propose a certification scheme of carbon removals to ensure a transparent identification of solutions that can, without any doubt, remove carbon from the atmosphere. But we know that even if we eliminate all greenhouse gases tomorrow, if we move up to removals of carbon, we would still face the effects of our past emissions for decades to come. Many of you probably follow the situation in India with a century type of heat wave, but this one will be repetitive in the future. And we have seen summer waves summer heat waves also in Europe demanding casualties. And this is really testing the limits of human capacities for survival. And this will be also testing the limits of our buildings to protect us. And this is why Europe has agreed not only to become climate neutral, but to also be ready for inevitable impact of climate change. And the new adaptation strategy here foresees an integration of climate resilience considerations into the criteria that is applicable for construction and renovation of buildings. In the renovation wave, this is mentioned in several places. And most notably in December last year, the proposed energy performance of buildings directive already mentioned is requiring member states to address the issue of climate adaptation when they renovate houses and in new buildings. And in March this year, the Commission proposed in the revision of the construction products regulation that construction works should take into account future climatic conditions. But there are also other ongoing building related initiatives in which climate resilience is considered the new European Bauhaus. You will hear more during the day about it. The digital building logbook or the green public procurement criteria for public buildings. For the implementation of initiatives, members and the actors of the construction sector will need a guidance on how to make buildings climate resilient, because it's easy to say, it's more difficult to do. The Levels framework on sustainable buildings developed by the Commission's Joint Research Center already includes some climate adaptation related indicators, but it is not sufficiently detailed, as this was not the main focus of the framework, of course. So we hope to fill the gap with an EU level guidance on the climate resilience of buildings, which when finished at the end of the year should help a range of actors to better understand the challenges the changing climate represents for buildings. We want also to promote much more green solutions in buildings, and many rules that are being set out, like the taxonomy, like the global block exemption for state aid, are giving some priority, some bonus to nature-based solutions. So, and if the right design choices are made, buildings also increase the adaptive capacity of the built environment, our adaptive capacity to heat waves, water extremes, and we will see much more of these beautiful structures like green and blue infrastructure or green roofs, walls, rain gardens in the future in our cities. Thank you for your attention and happy to respond to any queries.
Yes, thank you very much for this answer. I would like to ask you, so what does it mean in practice? Because we are using a lot of EU language, EU jargon here, and we have representatives of cities. What does it mean for them? Does that mean that, for example, as the consequence of introducing the climate adaptation aspect to the energy performance of buildings directive that you mentioned, green roofs and walls will become mandatory at least for certain types of buildings, such as buildings, public buildings, or major renovations? What does it mean for buildings users, for investors, for cities?
Thank you very much for the question. For the EU speak, I normally make it very careful to translate it into normal language. Just to say, this will, of course, this legal language provides pointers. This is what we want to see. We want buildings to be more resilient to heat waves, to storms, to hail, etc. But the technical solution, this is left to designers, this is left to engineers. According to the area where a certain building is placed, what is the major climate risk that may arise in the future, and that will be very different, according to the location of the building. You know what the fashion is, and I think more and more the fashion is indeed in green roofs, in green walls. You have to provide for better ventilation for occupants. It's much better to have an alley of trees around a certain building. Than a technical solution, which brings also bacteria into the indoor work or pollutants. So this is all left, I think, for the creativity of designers, architects, engineers, construction sector, that we don't doubt the creativity is well there.
Thank you very much. I think it's a great moment to turn to, since we speak about technical solutions, to industry right now. And starting with Mr. Tim Bauder, from your perspective, what are the benefits of integrating green roofs and walls in cities? Could you give some examples of the projects, and how would you respond to what you just heard about this upcoming legislative framework? What do you think works nowadays? What do you think could be improved? How legislation could support the development of green roofs and walls in our cities?
First of all, a short introduction of myself, our company. We are focusing on roofs. So whatever I say and talk about is about the roofs, because we don't do facades. We have a clear focus, clear strategy of our company to focus on roofs and therefore green roofs. Today I have a short presentation with a lot of pictures actually showing how roofs should look like in the future. And I would try to share this presentation quickly before I move on. You should see my screen. There we go. Should come. Can you see my presentation? Quick feedback would be good if you see my presentation. Yes. Yeah, perfect. So yeah, benefits of green infrastructure. As I said, you can see a picture of a green roof in combination with PV. I'm talking about that in detail because talk about technical solutions is there are things that and things that don't work, and sadly many things are applied which do not work in practice then. But before we start, and you mentioned it, and I don't want to spend a lot of time in the status quo. We're all dreaming about green cities, and Katharina, you said something with a vision of 10 years. 10 years is if you ambitious, if you would like to say, because look at the picture of I think it's Berlin. That's the status quo, and talking about green roofs and green walls, making them all green, that takes a lot of time, especially coming to the challenges later. Maybe it's better discussion. Who are the persons to change that picture? Workforce. Talking about it later maybe. I mean, green roofs and all the consequences. Elena, I think you said it's the urban heat islands. It's getting even warmer. I'm coming from a town called Stuttgart with the worst numbers in whole Europe of quality of air. And Stuttgart has a green roof strategy for 25 years now, so you can see the first positive effects. But yeah, if cities want to be livable in future, they need to get greener. There's no question about it anymore. So I think the question rather now is, how do we do it? And that's the big of a challenge. It's good to have the theory. In theory, we know a lot of things. We know a lot of things about green roofs and green walls. It's not that it's not working. We should do it. And I think we're at that point. So we look to Brussels and with a lot of ambition, and we like to see it. But it's a tough challenge. I don't want to be the pessimistic one today, but love all the plans and all the words I've said. But the way to get there is a long one, and with a few challenges which we need to change. And this is politics who needs to do that. What can we do as an industry? We can deliver solutions that work and fight those problems of urban heat islands and also urban floods. What could be the solution? I mean, I don't want to talk about green roofs in total because it's not a discussion if we need green roofs or not. We need them. That's it. Done. There's a tick on it. I hope we don't have this discussion. So what I want to talk about is things which are not addressed with at the moment so far. So this is the additional insulation you bring on top of it. So at the moment, you are not able to calculate the green roof into your U-value calculation. So it's not possible to combine it. So you cannot really, like by science, say, okay, my green roof gives me an additional 5%. There's research studies taking place also with BUGG in Germany, having research studies to change that, so that building owners, if they do a green roof on top, that it should be able to go into their U-value calculation to need less insulation in the end. So that's what we're working on. But the bigger point I want to talk about is also the cooling effect, which then has an effect on the photovoltaic system in the combination. What do I mean when talking about the insulation effect? So a green roof is and there's numbers. Please don't take them for granted. It's rough estimates. There's researching taking place, but of course a green roof also is insulation in the end. So you need less heating in the winter. And storing the rainwater and evaporate it back into the area surrounding it, so the temperature of the whole city goes down, which makes also all air conditioning, not even air conditioning or keeping buildings cooler, only works with green roofs in the whole city. So those are the two effects. Just looking at actually like energy using to run a building. Green roofs is more biodiversity. You have the strong weather events. That's the focus for green roofs at the moment. We should put it more into an insulation kind of regulation of the building, how much energy I need using the building. But jumping over the slides, what I really want to talk about today is the combination of green and PV. There's a discussion taking place which we should stop immediately. There is a fight of roof areas. So do I use my roof either for PV or either for for green, and everyone, especially industry, is now interested because energy costs due to the crisis in the Ukraine are raising in speed and time, and which we have never seen before. So a photovoltaic has been rentable for years, so it has been a good invest in PV roofs, but some other people didn't really want to do it because maybe electricity was too cheap. So that changed now. So everyone is looking really into photovoltaics on their roofs. The regulations and politics and governments talk about an obligation to put solar on top of your roof, which is nice. Yes, it's absolutely right, but we need to be careful that we don't kill the green infrastructure while trying to create more PV systems on roofs, which is correct. And on a flat roof, I'm talking now of a solution of a flat roof, it works. There is a combination that works, but it's a bit tricky. So I will show you just some pictures and of some projects we have conducted. The market for it is exploding because the regulations say there must be a green roof on top, and I want a PV. So what do building owners do? What you need to make sure, and that's important to understand. I'm not sure if that's too technical, so you need to stop me maybe, but you need to be careful that a PV panel is, sorry to say, a PV panel needs to be 30 to 40 centimeters above the level of the substrate. Why is that? You have a lot of seeds flying through the air. They sit down on the PV panel, then rain comes. Water takes the seeds, putting on a substrate. You have big plants coming up in front of the PV panel, and then you have shade, and the PV panels don't produce anymore. There are a lot of there's a lot of trouble with building owners. Don't get energy because their roof looks like a jungle, and you can find some PV panels. So there are solutions for it that it works. We do it now for 5 to 6 years. It's a super interesting field. You can see it's not an official case study. We are working on it to get the rights to use it. You can see it's an e-bus station, so electric buses in Nuremberg, and they have one of these big stations, and they decided to put a combination of green and photovoltaic on top of the bus station. That really is the future in my eyes. You need a lot of electricity during the day, so you need PV on top of the roof, but also having all the discussions of green roofs and biodiversity, which cities need. The combination needs to be the future. Happy to discuss it later, maybe. This is our own office building. That's our headquarters in Stuttgart. The building I'm sitting in, that's where it actually all started, because when building a new headquarters, you think about how should a roof look like in future, and green roof, and it really works fantastically. And we produce a lot of energy we use in our office building on our own, and having the effects of a green roof on site. So for us, and that's my topic today, green roofs must be mandatory. They should. I don't think it's a discussion if we need green roofs and not the exception. You can see a rickshaw roof on top of his rickshaw in India to give a cooling effect to his customers. And yeah, that's our ambition. We as an industry, it's of course interesting for us. We want to make roofs secure, green, and energy efficient, and there are solutions. And yeah, happy to discuss how long it will, what are the challenges to reach those ambitious goals. That's from my side.
Super, thank you very much. That was really, really interesting and really great pictures showing how our roofs can evolve from gray to green to biosolar. This is great. And of course, in the next sessions, we will discuss even more benefits linked to that, because we are speaking about multiple benefits for cities. I would like to now turn to Mr. David Richard, Deputy Director from Akuo Energy. And I would like to ask you precisely about this interlink between solar and biosolar roofs. And the European Commission is working on a solar rooftop strategy, while stressing, as we heard, to green our buildings in the renovation wave. So what is your point of view on developing synergies between solar and vegetation to create those biosolar rooftops, to combine all those benefits? How do you think it should be reflected in the European legislation?
Okay, good morning, and thank you for the question. I will come back on what we are currently doing, and I would say, and it was just said, that it's an evolution. There is a roof, a solar roof, and now what's just called biosolar roofs. We are in the middle here at Akuo, but I will come back on the experience we have, because for 10 years we've been combining solar and agriculture, and on the other side we've been developing solar roofs. So this is my thoughts, so people can understand what we are doing. So far, Akuo is an independent power producer, French. We were born some over 10 years ago, sorry. And since the beginning, there was one conviction, is that if you can avoid using land space for only one usage, you should do it. That means our conviction is to combine things. And I will start with a few pictures. And actually, this is where the roof project was born. Salvatore Dali used to say that, that Montpellier rail station was the center of the world for Dali. And actually, for us and our roof initiative, it started here next to Perpignan, this of forward. But I will come back on those routes. But first of all, to say our DNA. Our DNA in Akuo is this basket, basically, of vegetables. Because what you see, in fact, is coming from this solar plant. So for decades, we've combined in Akuo green and agriculture with solar, because it's one of our convictions. If you can use land to have two usage, you should go for it. And for example, this solar plant is run every day by inmates from in fact, if you see some razor blade protection, in fact, they can have jobs in those industry and so on. And it's our DNA. So basically, for one decade, we've been combining and photovoltaic. And we've got a long track record. We've got agricultural engineer in our teams, and we can really select all the type of plants you can grow under photovoltaics, what the benefits you're getting, because you've got yield improvement, because you're protecting your plants from insect weather. You've got more tempered temperature under those greenhouses. So we do master, I would say, and even humbly, but I would say we do master the combination of photovoltaic and green to take the best benefits of the both worlds. So on one side, we've got cumulative experience on this, and it can give you this kind of example. And actually, Akuo invented the concept of agri-energy some 10 years ago, again with this conviction as we should leverage all those areas which are left with only few functionalities. And actually, a roof functionality didn't change for 5,000 years, I would say. The roof for 5,000 years is protecting the building, ensuring watertightness, etc., some aesthetics, but we think it's time to improve and add some functionalities. And this is why we switch to solar roofs. But when you switch to solar roofs, you've got few challenges. First of all, on our side, we think the first challenge is robustness, because what we are doing, and you will see, it's called also BIPVs. We integrate solar into the roof. So you have to comply basically with building codes and electrical codes. And I will come back also on this when we're discussing those initiatives and how to support our industry and how to support those initiatives of getting a green roof. But then, and it was just mentioned during the introduction, we think there is a huge challenge, which is aesthetics. Because it's not only a matter of talking about a green roof. Those green roofs shall fit the architectural intent of the cities, of the buildings. So a big challenge is on aesthetics. And of course, basically you have to be cost effective. So what we've done so far, and we started in 2009, in fact, and this roof is from 2009, is to really work on combining aesthetics and photovoltaic production. And this roof is equipped, in fact, all the roofs around this are equipped with 90,000 photovoltaic tags that are running for more than 10 years, and that represent basically 25% of Perpignan city in France consumption. So we are convinced we can combine aesthetics, solar, and green buildings. This is another example, and it was mentioned, all systems, all of us, shall be suitable for new buildings and renovation. And this is an example of renovation. This was done last summer. This is a very old mansion in France, well, we would say a protected area where you need all architects from Architectes de France to validate your project based on the aesthetics. So this is why we are convinced that getting to the pathway to solar roof and then biosolar roofs also goes through aesthetics. So I could show plenty of those projects to just show you how we fit with the aesthetics. We even covered some churches, and also how we are struggling to maintain a European industry, because we're discussing about greening our roofs, but the industrial part shall not be also forgotten. And how can we fight for having all those industries and also training people to do this in Europe? So this is really in the cornerstone of our strategy. But to come back to, and this is basically the example of my speech, is don't forget when we're talking about solar or biosolar roofs that aesthetics most of the time will prevail, and this is our conviction. So having said that, and to answer your question, has to support further. Yes, indeed, there are those initiatives saying that new buildings or renovation shall be either covered with solar or either covered with green, or even better with both. And this is for sure. And teams, just we are all convinced around this table, I think, that it should be a must. But to go further, I think there is also huge work to do at the European level to get all the building codes aligned. Because currently, when we do this in a country and when we get our solutions validated in the country against the building code, when we move to the next country, we've got to redo the job again, because the building codes are not all aligned, the certification body are not all aligned, and you have to reinvest. And as we are talking still, and unfortunately, and I'm sharing the pessimism of team, still a little bit, it's still a niche market. Investing on all those certification when you want to deploy through all over Europe is also a bottleneck I think we should all try to address. So my point is, not only incentive to install, it's fine, we all agree, but also alignment on the codes we have to comply with.
Thank you very much. I understand this is the end of the slides. This is really interesting, very inspiring. And Mr. Richard, I have a question because you spoke about France. In the current French law, Climate and Resilience, from August 2021, there is an obligation to install a vegetative roof or solar panels to large commercial surfaces and office buildings. Is there any incentive for the combination of both? As you mentioned, that it's even better if we can combine both solar, bio, and potentially green. So far, the legislation says bio or solar. So how do you see that? Is there any discussion about that? Any visibility of the topic, or maybe there is no problem in practice? How would you interpret that?
In practice, I would take your point. In most of cases, it's or, because the incentive is either on photovoltaic, either you have to do one or the other. There is not this link in the incentive. The link is more in the labels, environment labels you will get for your buildings, and this will count in certain types of buildings because the building owner will have different sensitivity. But currently, you're right, it's or. There's no further incentive for end photovoltaic and I don't feel it would be better to have a small plus for the end, but current again, and my experience, and we're not only doing this in France, my experience is most of the time, except of course new buildings are away from the cities, but when you're close to the cities, most of the time the aesthetic and architectural constraints will prevail. So it's also why it will be a or.
This sounds like a great topic for the European Bauhaus initiative that we had from Mrs. Malinovská, because the Bauhaus is looking exactly at the aesthetics in line with climate and energy goals. So maybe this is becoming already a topic. If not, I think it should definitely become, because these are exactly the future-proof solutions that should be targeted by the Bauhaus and followed by the legislation. Thank you. Now I'd like to turn to Mr. Michel from Sika. So we are all interested in more examples of green roofs, also in combination with solar panels. Maybe you have some examples to show. And from your point of view, how do you see the evolution of the market? We heard from Mr. Richard a couple of points about the market. How do you see it from your perspective? How do you think there is a momentum right now for becoming more ambitious to promote such solutions, looking at the climate objectives we have, and also dealing with all kinds of climate-related issues, such as stormwater management, need for more biodiversity? The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much for the possibility that I can join this event from the industry side. So Sika, worldwide system supplier, as well as Bauder for the waterproofing solution on flat roofing systems. Today I start somehow the presentation and go in a direction because the benefits, I think they are clearly pointed out during the last speakers already. I would like to go more into the side of what are the hurdles to go more green. And if we go, and we saw already pictures, so city centers, they should be green in the future, we are absolutely clear. But these are mostly also small roofs, and mostly also the bearing construction is solid built, so maybe it's concrete. So a green roof is mostly highly embellished. So these are mostly challenges sometimes that the bearing construction is accordingly built, also small houses. So when it comes to the industry side, so industrial buildings, they are much bigger in size. So we're talking about 5,000 square meters. A small one goes up to 50,000 square meters, and those are normally not green today. Why they are not green? Because the bearing construction there is a trapezoidal metal clad, meaning it's lightweight constructed and doesn't allow a lot of ballast on top. So let me share my presentation, my screen, which I will touch today. Okay. So the challenge of this weight of a green roof, there are possibilities, and we have defined, or also Bauder has solutions ready for lightweight construction. So here we see the trapezoidal metal clad from a typical industrial building. Then you have the insulation board to isolate the building, and on top of it, the waterproofing layer, which could be mechanically fastened, adhered, whatever solution is. And then on top we have, this is a bio solar system, the solar system on top, and around somehow the greenery. And in that case, so when we look to the ballast, so trapezoidal metal clad allows maximum ballast, depends on the metal, of 75 kilograms. So the ballast on top needs to be defined accordingly. So when it comes to that system, what I showed today here in some examples, so the frame, the solar system here on top is roughly 10 to 18 kilograms in weight per square meter. And if it touches here, it's the green roof below. So including the solar system, we go up to 40 to 50 kilograms. So we are still below the maximum load, which is allowed by the trapezoidal metal clad. Here we see some other frame we install on top of our waterproofing membrane. These are the special fixing elements, which are hot air welded directly to the waterproofing membrane. Here, one key benefit as well, because if you install a green roof system on top, customer clients always has some hints about that. Yeah, in case of a leakage, to find somehow the leak. And if you have penetrations into the waterproofing layer, this can cause mostly the leak. So in that case, you do not have to penetrate your waterproofing layer. So it's directly fixed into the membrane. No additional ballast is needed except the green roof on top. Here's some installation we did in the past, one project here in Switzerland. So we see here is the drainage layer, and then on top somehow the greenery, which is around the solar system. Then also here some examples from Germany. So the bigger areas to cover. Here Discounter, a famous one. Here another one, which you see how beneficial it could be with a green roof on top combined with the solar system. One benefit which is not really mentioned today, or is not so mentioned, is because the efficiency of the solar panel is also related to the temperature. And if we install somehow a green roof beside, you can have a cooling effect of the solar system, which then also increase the efficiency of the solar panel. So roughly number is, if you decrease your temperature on a solar panel, you can increase your efficiency up to 2% to get more energy out of the solar system. So you can imagine if normally, or let's say 80% of the roofs we install our solar system are not green, sadly, or hopefully will change in the future. But if you can imagine if you have a black roof around, which is definitely not nice, which can also affect negatively on the impact on the, you get more efficient, or not more efficiency out, so you get less, their solar panels are less efficient in that case. Then a second topic also, because a solar system, it needs to last at least 30 years or even more that it's also sustainable, that you do not need to replace it after 10 years already. The green roof also, from an industry perspective, from a waterproofing provider, it's also increasing the durability of the waterproofing system if this is not exposed to the sunlight, to any event of hail and so on. So it's also protecting our waterproofing membrane and waterproofing system. Then another hurdle is surely also the maintenance. So there's a key factor of planning it properly. Your solar or biosolar system, that the maintenance can properly be done, because it's also costly finally. But this needs to be properly done to be successful or have a proper system for a long time of period. Yeah, so this shortly from my end, from the industry side. So I think it's the industry itself needs to push the direction of biosolar system. There should be not a battle, as Tim already mentioned, between it's better solar system, green roof. There are places for both system in the market. And on the other hand, we need to have the legislation ready that it is more push on green roofs in the future. Yeah. So thanks a lot, and waiting for questions if there are.
Yes, of course. Thank you very much. Indeed, there are questions coming right now, and I think one is definitely for you. There is a question: how fast, how much time does it take to install a green facade, a green roof? Another question to this: what kind of skills we need? How does the job market look like for such experts, such installers? Who's actually training them? How do you see this aspect? So it's about timing. How long would it take, for example, school to install a green roof, and whether it's difficult to find installers, experts, and what about training? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So the question is first related to what kind of green roof system you will install. Is it an extensive, intensive green roof? So it takes much more effort on an intensive green roof to put it. If it is an extensive, what I have showed here, the system, which is not really high in weight and in dimension. So one school can be easily installed in 1-2 days, depends a little bit on the crew who is working there. So it's quite a fast installation method. So this should be definitely not the hurdle. Finally, the product has a certain cost, but the installation, so the workmanship cost, the labor cost is not as high on such systems. If you're coming to intensive green roofs, surely there is a much bigger effort. You need to have the machinery. Sometimes in different markets, you bring the substrate by machinery on top. So it's, and this is also quite related to the market. So I can speak, I'm originally from Switzerland. So in Switzerland, also the roofer does the green roof. But when we go across the border to Germany, there is somehow the Galabau, the garden Landschaft in German, which is finally then installing, and they are well trained to install the green roof system on top of the waterproofing. So it very much depends on the market, how they are historically established. Yeah.
Just also another question to our industry colleagues, and then
sorry, may I interrupt? I raised my hand. I don't think.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, please, yes.
I want to what Mr. Michel said. Support it 100%. Was all correct. We have two limiting factors. It's not a technology. It's two limiting factors. The biggest one is craftsmen, is people. We have too many young people going to universities and learning about the theory, how things could work. And we have massive problems, and it's not the peak of it. If you look at the, for example, roofers or installers in Germany, whole Europe, they're getting older and older, and they have massive problems of getting young people into those jobs. And it's fantastic how we set goals and want to build so many buildings and make buildings greener and everything. There are no people who are doing it. And digitization and all the stuff in building industries, it might get more efficient, but we need people to do it. and they are not there, and they're not coming. The young people they don't see craftsmanship as an onerous job. We won't change our cities into green cities if there are no people doing it, and we have massive problems on that, and that's one of the biggest problems. And second big problem is the raw materials. So you just can't dig in your garden and put the soil you have in your garden on top of your roof. You need special substrates, and we need raw materials. We have them in Europe. Question is, are we able to dig them out of the soil? Discussion between nature and industry, and we need to make sure that we are able to use the resources we have, which is lava most of the time. You need to make sure it's able to get those raw materials, and please don't import them from China and having conditions in China of getting those raw materials. So these are the two. It's not technology, it's people and raw materials in the end.
Fully support here, and maybe just that it's not only in Europe the case. It's also, we see it even in Asia. So Japan, they do not, let's say, they get black fingers, so they are shifting. They need to have employees which is from Southeast Asia. They hire, which is doing that work. So this labor, these workers are really missing also worldwide. So it's not just the European segment.
Mr. Richard, would you like to add something to that?
I won't be the third to emphasize on this, but I'm totally aligned. And we even had to set up a training center and to do partnership with technical, what we call lycée technique in France, technical colleges, to train, but also to advert on those kind of jobs, because there is a lack of competency huge, and currently in France you can be in the bottleneck for waiting for 1 year to get a roofer.
Yes, so indeed, would you see, maybe it's a question for industrial colleagues from industry, would you see European green infrastructure industry excelling? Do you think this could become one? I saw made in France, you know, the label in your presentation. Do you think that also one of the aspects why this industry should be supported in terms of legislation in order to support buildings and our cities to become more friendly for our climate and well-being? So do you think that another reason is actually that we have some business opportunities on other continents because our industry is quite advanced? How would you do this? How would you comment that?
Is the question directed
to you, for example?
To me, for example. First part of the question is, I think we better have a holistic vision of the challenges. Not to talk about technical solution, because it was said we've got the technical solution, but it's the pieces of the puzzles fitting together we don't have. So the first part of your question was how to boost at European level. So already having all the pieces of the puzzle, and not having one silo on photovoltaic, one silo on green, one silo on education, one silo on reindustrialization. What do we want to do? I was telling you that we're pushing to reindustrialize, and we want our product to be products produced in Europe or in France, but we're struggling in raw material because, for example, and it's common sense, everybody knows it, but no photovoltaic cells, or nearly. There are new projects or few players that are trying to push, but all cells are coming from Asia. You talk about photovoltaic, the glass industry with solar type glass is disappearing from Europe. So yes, indeed, we have to go for a huge and massive effort in Europe if we want to go further and abroad, because if the game is to bring glass from Asia, for example, bring it to Europe, transform in Europe to re-import in those countries, I'm not sure it will be a very virtual circle we will start with. So for me, before going abroad, would be to have all the bases in Europe to initiate a virtual circle.
Thank you. I would like to now turn to Mrs. Malinovská, because we got some questions for you in the chat box. So first of all, there was a comment from Mr. Luigi Petito from the World Green Infrastructure Network on this discussion in the French legislation either or. And he has a very interesting comment saying that actually the solution to this would also be an additional push of introducing urban biodiversity targets, like we have targets on renewable energy, right? So that's actually a really interesting comment. And the question to Mrs. Malinovská is whether you are discussing colleagues from other DGs, since this is a really, like, green roofs and walls are a true example of a Green Deal. Why do we need it? DG Environment would need to be involved, DG Climate Action, DG Energy, since we are discussing all those benefits under a big chapeau of climate action, of course. So are you also looking at such topics, such as introducing biodiversity targets, which in fact in cities would help to address climate issues, to restore the natural water cycles, to cool down cities? So a comment on biodiversity targets maybe from your side, and cooperation with other DGs also. And that leads to another question, which is in the chat box on the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive. Are you involved in this revision? We know that this proposal is coming before the summer. It's expected from DG Environment. And do you also look at the benefits in there of green infrastructure in terms of stormwater management? And as we know, the challenges for stormwater management are very closely linked to climate issues. So that's the question about the synergies to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would say yes, we work under the guidance of the European Green Deal, more than climate policies or environmental policies. I think it's an amazing effort where you try also to work on possible trade-offs that do exist even within ecological policies. That's the first point to raise. I believe that through the adaptation policies and really the bonus, even a legal bonus that is, for instance, in taxonomy or in other pieces of legislation, we try to promote nature-based solutions first, or a combination of technical solutions with nature-based solutions. I must tell you also, let's not dream that you can have only nature-based solution. Even a restoration of a wetland is a hell of a physical effort where you need, technical knowledge and also some pipes to allow for, let's say, the water cycles to be, for instance, restored. Now, how we go about, the biodiversity in cities, I think colleagues in DG Environment now prepare a very important law on nature restoration, because the logic in Europe has been always to protect species where they are and to designate these nature islands, Natura 2000 areas. Now you imagine that many cities have damaged what they had before. So the major effort now should go into preserving what we have, but also restoring the capacities of our cities to be, sponges, instead of these impervious and dead zones. You've seen it on Tim's slides very nicely in terms of heat island. It's very clear where the red is located. We are looking into how help with a study that we will launch on sponge functions of cities, how to promote more the green and the blue infrastructure. So the recovery plans, we have been debating, for instance, the restoration of water streams, ponds, meanders, biodiversity in cities. I must say it hasn't been a theme that was picked up by many in the recovery plans, also because this is not yet seen as productivity enhancing activity. And this is where I would turn to the industry indeed to make a case to look, this is a major industrial opportunity. This is just not about butterflies and flowers. This is a real work, real skill, because I think there is still this sort of split. This is maybe beautiful aesthetic, but it's not economic. This is for the public budget to take care of, but it's not, bringing money. And financial flows, etc., etc. So there is also some to do on these narratives, perceptions, and biases we do see, and we will is and setting more a sort of common trunk of requirements. This is still a very difficult discussion to be held with some member states. At the same time, the insurance companies are realizing that unless there are very robust rules by the authorities on building codes, they can be confident also about their business, the insurance business. So everything, links to everything. But in me, I can reassure you, you have someone who defends every time I speak, on adaptation policy and climate policies. I do defend the nature-based solutions.
That's a clear message. Thank you very much. Regarding the building codes, very important topic. And indeed, do you think, it's a question to Ms. Malinovská, that, for instance, what we see in the EPBD proposal from the Commission on climate adaptation, where you see opportunities for green roofs and walls, do you think that this will actually lead to opening this debate with the member states at the national level on the building codes? Is this enough? What do you think about that? Is this the way forward?
It's good to have it, but it's not enough. It's the right direction, and we need much more than that. We need a huge supply from the industry, and we need also to promote much more demand among people who renovate, etc. I don't know how many among the audience have ever renovated a house or tried to put solar panels on your rooftop, etc. It's a real hurdle, when you go there, and there's still some way to do, to go in terms of administrative easiness to do it, but also the sort of perception, yes, there is a possibility to go for it because there is a prototype of solutions that I can a menu. I don't need to go for my own. Somebody has already taken this is a beaten track, and I can I can go for it. So the short reply is the right direction, but not yet a outcome.
So I will maybe ask, because in the chat there are also discussions about the stormwater management. So again, we are talking about all those benefits. We come back to how to make it happen. Building codes seems to be the right direction. Could you imagine, again, question to Mrs. Malinovská, how to work with members on that? Shall we organize maybe some dedicated concerted actions on this, like for renovation? It already exists with member states, to discuss how to implement urban green infrastructure in the building codes, how to maybe share best practice with them, because it seems like the topic is present in many places, but it's still difficult to make it happen in practice, let's say. So do you think that perhaps some additional forums with member states dedicated to greening our buildings would be useful, perhaps shared between different DGs? Are there any possibilities?
That's already happening, but you replied to your question. It's complicated because there is a governance that is fragmented and divided in between many actors. It can be also its strength because we look at different aspects of buildings. I didn't reply to your question about stormwater and urban wastewater treatment. We indeed look into it very much in detail. On the one hand, in terms of energy efficiency and the life cycle of emissions of such treatment, but also very importantly, the benefits of using rainwater for gardens, for toilets, for any sort of uses. It can replace indeed the drinking water. As you know, the standards for drinking water in Europe are quite high. And we know, as a matter of fact, from the projections ahead for 20 to 50 years, water scarcity will become a very important constraint, not only for Spain that lives with it, but also, for instance, for Belgium, where we are, or other Nordic countries. So it's a real limit for many activities, and I believe this will also trigger a lot of innovation going on into such solutions. Finally, just to say, we have launched a Horizon Europe mission on adaptation, which is an endeavor whereby we want to promote adaptation solutions. We are also, fed up by talk about adaptation and planning, and nothing is happening. Accelerate solutions. We want to put together the, let's say, innovative part of the budget and the sort of, mainstream part of the budget, like cohesion or life or common agricultural policy, and have a solution, rolled out quickly. And there I see a lot of potential for what we call critical infrastructure, nature-based solutions, for adaptation in cities. And the work programs have been, for 2023 is under preparation, and we'll look into areas like water management and nature-based solutions in cities and so on.
Yes, I would like to remind the participants that you can insert your questions in Q&A. We have a very practical question from Andrea Ramirez Agudelo on the trainings mentioned before. Where are these trainings available? Trainings mentioned by Mr. Richard, I suppose. What kind of organizations are involved in these trainings? So it's a question to industry, first of all, but also to the Commission, whether you are discussing this, as you mentioned, it's about green industry, green jobs, it's about making the topic interesting and available for young people who go into the streets, who demand more action for climate protection, but at the same time there are job opportunities for them, and they can actually become implementers of climate action. So how to basically coordinate the training? So question both to all the speakers, basically. What do you know about it? Are you involved? What do you think industry could do more? What's the role of the European Commission? What's the role of member states? It's a really important question. And I know that this discussion very well from the renovation discussions. It's quite similar, how to attract people to those jobs. Who would like to start, Mr. Richard? So I think it's follow up to your answer on training. What are those trainings?
Yeah, this is what you mentioned my name, but I'm smiling because the question is, for me as industry guy, is a bit strange. What should the industry do to train more people? My way to see things is, what setup should we have in our education system so the people are trained for tomorrow's jobs? So I find very strange to put all the burden every time on the industry. But having said that, we tried to do it. And as I was mentioning, we had to go, if we want our products or vision as industry people to realize, we need, and as we don't have help, we took a suitcase and started visiting, as I was saying, lycée technique or schools to convince them that, okay, currently they are training their people to install standard roofs, to install standard tiles, to install standard slates, but the jobs of tomorrow will not be 100% on standard tiles, standard slates, and so on. And it was a discussion at the college level to convince them to go through. So humbly, we didn't initiate any global or national initiative. It was trying to identify the technical schools working on roofs and training future roofers and convincing them. So it's very humble in what we are doing. And we opened another center and we invested to train the existing roofers to those new solutions.
Yes, that's really clear. Thank you. So the role of public sector, it's education, the future, the jobs. Mrs. Malinovská, how do you see this topic? Is it perceived as a priority for the Green Deal, and what are the interests of member states? Because things need to happen at the national level, and as Mr. Richard just mentioned, we need to make our educational system ready for the Green Deal. That's quite clear. What would be your comment?
I fully agree, but here I must say there is a mismatch of competences. Let me explain. Of course, whenever we discuss about a challenge, I can tell you the solutions or the areas where we need to work is literacy, education, money, local regulations, etc. This is where Europe has less of a say than many actors do believe. An example, we do not prescribe the curricula for certain professions. When I discussed in Germany, I think a year and a half ago, I discussed with an engineering school in Berlin. The feedback was that despite the fact that multidisciplinarity is the sort of EU speak, everybody speaks about how much we need to be multidisciplinary. It means if you need to develop batteries, you need to know something about electronics and you need to know something about chemistry. If you want to develop green roofs, I think you need to know something about, planting or, greening, and at the same time about technical solutions. So it does require a sort of particular combination of skills, and there are still no courses, straightforward courses that do offer it. And the reply of these German professors was essentially, we have a model in Germany that does not promote multidisciplinarity. I don't know whether this applies across the board in other countries, but I guess this is one of the points where there needs to be push also from industry to say, look, this is what we need. This is the sort of workforce we need. They need to have ABC skills, and this comes from different paths of life. And I think the schools could then, of course, adjust. What I see in my career, and I come from an engineering family, I'm a lawyer myself, but what I have seen is what helps always are these university industry cooperations, because they allow a smooth learning pick up of certain skills by students. So after school, they already are trained for a certain business, but they do ensure companies inflow of new young skilled workforce or the white collars. And unfortunately, you have only few systems that really, like Austria or Germany, where such a system actually does exist. Certainly not in my country. So the question is complex. The EU can push, talk, but we don't have real legal means and the cover of a competence to go the full way to prescribing such requirements.
Thank you very much. We have an additional speaker, Mr. Quaranta, who wanted to intervene on the topic of the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive. So I would like to give you the floor.
Hi all, thank you very much for letting me as a panelist. I did a speech a few hours ago at the beginning of this conference. Yes, I would like to answer to the comment on the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive because yes, I work at the Jersey, and here we are supporting the revision of the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive by performing some estimation on the benefit of urban greening, on the reduction of combined sewer overflow. So on the reduction of the wastewater speeds. And we found that the ratio of benefit to cost of green solution is typically 1 order of magnitude higher than the benefit to cost ratio of gray solution. Because urban greening has several benefits, not only in the reduction of stormwater overflow, but also additional other benefits like increasing biodiversity, reduction of summer temperature, and so on. We also found that constructed wetlands are very cost-effective solutions, but the challenge is the problem of space availability. But in any case, yes, urban greening is more cost-effective than a gray solution. And a gray solution is, for example, the increase of the pipe diameter of the combined network or the increase of the volume of storage tanks. So, okay, so urban green is a very cost-effective solution and with a benefit to cost ratio much higher than gray solutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have for this intervention, I would like to ask other speakers, would you like to react to what we just heard from Mr. Quaranta? If not, I have a question to the Commission, to the European Commission, from Luigi, from the World Green Infrastructure Network, a really good one, I think. So since we know that greening buildings has actually a positive impact on the improving climate in our cities, in urban areas, since we speak really about buildings here, and we have a recast of the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive ongoing, shouldn't we integrate vegetation to a definition of zero emission buildings? What do you think about that?
You put me in a difficult position, because a very personal opinion is, yes, I would love it. But the proposal of the Commission is, of course, the line to take, the official line to take by the Commission. And of course, it doesn't disqualify any sort of options or solutions that can go for it. Just a side remark, Berlaymont, the sort of central building of the Commission, is now hosting a very small native plants garden to be bigger, and I hope our colleagues responsible for infrastructure and for buildings in the Commission, because it's unfortunately not the benefit of installing green roofs, you know, also on other buildings. And I can tell you, if you have the benefit of seeing it, then there will be also a trigger in terms of policy developments or preparation of regulations in favor of it. But for me, a full thumb up for greener solutions also being mentioned, and a legal bonus being given to them.
Thank you very much. Very clear message, and of course we all agree with it. Maybe before we finish, there is also I think a nice final remark here from the World Green Infrastructure Network's representative to Mr. Richard. We discussed those biosolar rooftops. Maybe we could already agree on organizing some dedicated workshops on this combination of bio and solar. Also inviting colleagues from the European Commission, since it seems that there is a lot of interest in this agenda. So that's the question to Mr. Richard. How would you react? Maybe we could follow up and go deeper on that.
To organize, so sorry, I didn't get, was it a comment or a question, or is a question, am I open to work further on? Yes. Of course I am, because when you're in this field, it's a conviction. You're waking up every day, things happen. And actually, and as Tim was saying, we're doing this for more than 1 decade. And I don't see the things picking up like I would have liked 10 years ago when I started. We discussed facade for more than 10 years. We've got facade solutions, but it's not picking up. So when you're convinced it's a solution, you're willing to try to make things change. And of course, I will be delighted to go further in dedicated workshops on this topic.
Fantastic. I think this is a great message, and it's always great, to speak amongst the passionate experts who know their field and who want to make things happen, how you said. And I think all of our guests today have proven that. And I'm sure it's not the end, it's the beginning of new exchanges. We learned a lot about the current EU legislation, about some outlook, about how to combine different units, different agendas within the Green Deal, and different technology experts from industry. So thank you very much. And now for this discussion, I would like to close the session, the first session, session 1, and already invite you that at 11:30 we will start the second session, which will be on boosting cities' resilience to extreme weather events. So we will go even deeper on the questions related to water, already highlighted by Mrs. Malinovská. So basically, it is also about saving drinking water instead of using it for other purposes. It is about saving energies for stormwater management. So be with us. So thank you to all our speakers, and stay with us for the next sessions. And thank you very much to everyone also for the questions from the audience. And see you later at 11:30.